Hello, ladies and gents. We're back with another round of Modern. In fact, we're actually here at the top 8 from our 1K. On the left, we have Chasinkle playing not Bring to Light Scape Shift. It is, in fact, Yorion Blink. I don't know why I put Bring to Light Scape Shift originally. That gets fixed in a bit. And on the right, we have James Evelyn playing Living End. This is the, I guess it's 4-color now. It's primarily blue. Blue-green, I would say. Jazz is going to fetch out. James is just going to be playing some check lands and filtering with some cycle cards. Both of these decks are really interesting. Chaz's deck is it's really fun to watch. It's pretty sweet. And then Living End in general is just really cool. When it goes off, it's one of the most absurd things to witness right now in the format. Alright, we're going to Abundant Growth? Oh no. I know and play this card. Why am I blanking? Enchant land, draw a card. That land can tap for any color. Wow, that's going to bother me. Alright, James is just cycling some things. Kind of cycle an Architect's Will. Right. If I remember correctly, both of these players were 4-0-2. They had 4 wins and 2 draws going into the top cut. And like I was saying, both decks do a lot of cool things. The Blink deck has an absurd amount of interactions to it. You're going to see Ren and 6 Resolve, buy back a Misty Rainforest. There is a said Misty. And we're going to fetch. Grab it up. Snow-covered forest. Ooh, let's grab both players' deck lists. What do we got here? I'm gonna need that one. There it is. Yeah, this is a Yorion deck. There's a lot going on. Oh, the Shardless Agent has come down. And we are cascading. There's a copy of Living End. And it looks like it's going to resolve. I don't see any ways to stop it in Chaz's hand. Yeah, so some of the interesting creatures in the Blink deck. How much power did he just put on board? 14? Nah, it's more than that. I love the fact that they're playing Grief now. Grief is a wonderful include in this deck. Yeah, some interesting cards in Chaz's deck include Eldamri Skull, which isn't relatively seen too often. There's a Spell Queller, Eternal Witness, Emrakul the Promised End, Restoration Angel, Wandering Mind, Kiki Jiki, and then some cool stuff in the sideboard too. Actually, the sideboard's pretty not stock, but there's no crazy interesting cards in the sideboard. Abundant Growth. That's the name of the enchantment. Good lord. Alright. Let's see if Chaz has a way out of this board. No, Wandering Mind's really cool. Wandering Mind is a card from the new set. It's one red, it's one a blue and a red, and you look at the top 6 cards of your deck, and you get to add, I believe, 2 non-creature, non-land spells to your hand. Wandering Mind. Yep. ETB, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land from among them and put them in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the deck. Cool. We're going to land for turn and fetch. We have land Planeswalker. Heat's not going to be able to do much. Curator of Mysteries. Grief. How big is Curator? Alright, so Curator's a 4/4. 7/9 damage. And then Architects is 3 damage, 12. And then I don't know how big the other thing is. Probably big enough to kill, but I'm going to cast an Expressive Iteration. Exiling a Solitude. Found a Prismatic Ending, it looks like, as well. Yep. Oh, no, that's not a Prismatic. Is that Blossoming Call? Does look a lot like Blossoming Calm. Alright. James gonna attack in, put Chaz to 7. He's got 8 damage on the board. Land for turn passes. Alright, flashes into Solitude. Exiles to Grief. James will go to large number 30. Just go to 2. Grief is exiled. Then Jazz will, regain health. So we have 5 life, an Omnath in play, and I was he didn't rip a land, but he could always play the Ren and 6. No, he can't. What am I talking about? He doesn't have a untap source. This is what happens when you try to multitask and look at 3 different things at once. Alright. James would attack in for 3 damage, put Jazz to 2. Now, if Chaz could make it to the next turn without dying, he could play, if he doesn't just rip a land off the top. 4 mana. The deck plays 4. Oh, we're just hard casting an Architect's Will. Look at the top 2 cards of his deck.
Eternal Witness. No, not quite. Oh, Zemmercool. I had to think, like, how much does the Zemmercool bring? How much does it cost? It costs 8. Unless it also counts 9. So it was 5, right?
Yeah, if Chaz doesn't die here, and if he draws a land for turn, he can gain 4 life off of Omnath, go to 6. But if even if he doesn't rip it, ooh, there's the force. Here comes Ren 6 number 2. Ren's gonna buy a land. Omnath's gonna trigger, gain 4 life. Imagine, cool. Gonna fetch. So he's gonna do 5 life, go from 2 to 6 to 5. And then this will trigger Omnath's second ability to add red, white, blue, green. And then Chaz can either play the Wandering Mind in his hand or the Teferi Time Raveler. Raveler can just bounce something. I guess the Architect's Will is the best choice if you're going for an untapped land. But it looks like he's gonna grab a Triome. He doesn't need to get an untapped land. He has 4 mana that's coming in for free. Because Omnath is wild. Absurdly fun card to play with. Not okay at all. And then that's a Restoration Angel. Which, if you don't know what Restoration does, it is a 3/4 flash flyer, 4/4 mana, and when it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-angel card you control, then return that card to the battlefield. So he gets to flicker his Omnath to draw a card. Alright, attacks in. The angel can block the Brazen Borrower. Blocks there, takes 3. Interesting he didn't choose, he chose not to block the Architect's Will. I guess it's just better than putting it in the graveyard for a potential living end. Which is going to happen as a Shardless Agent. Other copies of Living End are deep in that deck, Jesus. Yep, so both players are going to exile their creatures and return any that were in the graveyard to the battlefield. And then the exiled creatures will go to the graveyard. So the Shardless Agent will resolve. James will get a smattering of people. Chaz will get to exile 2 guys. So probably the Architect and the Brazen Borrower, I would assume. Goes Architect and Curator, which is, I think, what I meant to say. What did I say? Architect and Brazen. was like, worst comes to worst, he can Ren ping the Brazen Borrower down. Is the ETB trigger from the Architect. He's going to target himself. Now, while it doesn't look like it, Chaz is not in too terrible of a spot. Sure, James has 37 life and Chaz has 2. But Chaz has a lot of stuff in his deck that can potentially get him back. I mean, how much mana does he have? That's 5. Yep, he's going to time warp target himself. And then James is going to concede. And so that would have allowed Chaz to take extra turns and then just kind of start popping off from there. Alright, so what do we have for the sideboard? Chaz has Blossoming Calm, 3 copies of Lightning Helix, 1 copy of Fury, 2 copies of Veil of Summer, 3 copies of Mystical Dispute, 2 copies of Endurance, 2 copies of Engineered Explosives. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Disputes and the Endurances come in here. And honestly, kind of, even though, maybe not the Helix. The 4th copy of Fury could come in. But I think I would go Dispute Endurance. Endurance is to deal with the graveyard. And then Dispute just for general counter magic stuff. Then for James, who has pretty nice handwriting, on a side note, if you're watching this. James has 3 Foundation Breaker, 2 Leyline of Sanctity, 2 Mystical Dispute, 1 Brazen Borrower, 3 Subtlety, 3 Endurance, 1 Force of Vigor. So, same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Mystical Dispute came in this matchup just to deal with annoying blue cards. And then the Subtlety, probably. That way you can deal with Teferi Time Raveler, which is also something Mystical Dispute would... You know, that is an annoying blue card I would classify Dispute being needed for. But if they go to cast it, you can Subtlety in response at least. Yeah, I think Dispute and Subtlety is probably the only things I would put in. You probably don't need Foundation Breaker. Leyline's not something you really need here. The extra borrower is not that important. Not important enough to go up a copy, I would say. And Endurance Force of Vigor doesn't do as much in this matchup, I would say. So, yeah, that's probably where I would be. Alright. Looks like they're going to be boarding for a bit, so we're going to cut right on over to when Game 2 starts. See you in a second. Alright, we're back with Game 2. We have James on the play here. I think both players are just resolving their mulligans real quick. Seeing if they want to keep their 7 that they drew. Looks like it. Alright, James is going to shock down at 18. And say go. Rock and try on pass. Going to cycle a Striped Riverwinder. Scalding Tarn in play. It's always interesting either playing Living End or watching Living End play, just because, like, you don't always do a lot in the beginning. You just put really big people, really big creatures into the graveyard. Alright, Breeding Pool passed. There's a Curator Mysteries getting cycled. And draw. Did we draw something that we could cycle? Let's see, a fetch. Down to 17. Shocking down to 15. Alright, yep, shocking down to 15. And, I don't know, just putting it in tapped, it looks like. I was going to assume that we would be cycling another creature, but if that's not the case, Yep. All right. Botanical Sanctum. Got a Grief pitching Architect's Will. Alright, Griefy DBs. So we've got a Kiki Jiki to Fairy Time Reveler, Expressive Iteration. Card that I just saw the name of and then completely forgot. Wandering Mind. And then a extra turn spell, aka the One of Time Warp, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the One of Time Warp. Going effectively saying we are between one of two things, between Expressive Iteration and a Fairy Time Reveler. Taking the Time Reveler. Will we see a Living End come out this turn? Or come into play this turn? Alright, there's a Violent Outburst.
Not reveal my sideboard cards. Living End.
Surprised he didn't do that during, like, the draw step. I guess, well, he knows Chaz doesn't have the counter magic now, so he might as well do it. Grief's gonna ETB, and then I'm assuming take the
It's going to take your
Expressive Iteration.
Wandering Mind.
Ah, it takes the Wandering Mind, okay.
I'll get +1/+0.
Alright, so I see a Restoration Angel. What could be a land? But I don't think it is. It was not the good stuff. There's an Eternal Witness. Didn't see what he put in hand. Goes for Triumph Pass. Okay. Iwa is just exiled permanently. James throws another Shardless Agent. However, the nice thing is, like, when you're playing against Rhinos, they can just every turn play a Shardless Agent against you and keep making their board bigger. Living End can't really do that, which, you know, is whatever. They do put potentially 20 power on the board in one turn, but like now, he has 12 power on board. Alright, Snow Covered Island Pass. James is going to attack in here. The Restoration Angel's going to get flashed in. It's going to get settled, and that's going to be game 2. Going to James on Living End. Hey, when subtlety works, you know? It's pretty decent. It's still the worst of that cycle. But hey, it did something. Alright, we'll be right back with game 3. And we are back with game 3. This time we have Chaz on the play. Leading off with a Roggen Triumph, and James leaving off with a Spire Bluff Canal. Very entertaining turn 1. Nah, they gotta sit up, so Tap Temple Garden. We're going to see a striped Riverwinder get cycled here. Land draw. That's the Street Wraith. James' hand looking pretty good. As long as he has a Cascader, he should be set. Land pass from Chaz. Alright, cycle the Curator. Cycles a Street Wraith down at 18. Now we're going to see him fetch. He's at 17. Grabbing a tapped breeding pool. Alright, Botanical Sanctum. Which was the draw for turn or two, which is nice. It's got a Violent Outburst to play at the end of Chaz's turn. Or I guess in response to a Time Raveler. Because I definitely see a Time Raveler in his hand. Alright, shocks at a breeding pool down to 18. Fetches 17. There's a snow-covered mountain. I love these, like, not that his deck is an Omnath pile deck, but I love that style of deck. Omnath is such a cool card. There's a Time Raveler. There's triple Force Negation in James's hand. Good God. Alright, so Force pitching Force. Chaz has the Mystical Dispute. Does he fight over this? I mean, if Chaz disputes here, James could always respond by casting the Violent Outburst. Cool. Let's get exiled. And it just passes. James debating if End Step Outburst is worth it here. I mean, he has the Force Negation, the third copy. Alright, James is attempting to cast Living End now. Kaz just allowing it. That's interesting. This is a 13, I believe, right? Maybe it was 12. You could hardcast Fury here, yeah. Can shoot down the Sphinx, I believe. I don't think he can kill two things. Unless Street Wraith is 1 toughness, but I don't think so. Yeah. Just shoot down the Curator. The Grief is a decent top deck, if James has a black card in hand. Because it'll let him take the Solitude out of Chaz's. Could always attack in, see what gets blocked by the Fury. Yeah, but living ending back the Fury doesn't sound good. That's pretty good. Choosing to not cascade, I assume, then, off the Violent Outburst? Is it optional to not cascade? Like, is it optional to cascade? I know you don't have to cast the card you find, but I don't know if it's mandatory to actually do it. Alright, that's finding a Flood of Strand. It looks like the Time Warp. It looks like a Japanese Mystical Archive card. I think the only one he plays is the Time Warp. Alright, land for turn. Could we see the Eternal Witness come out? Buy back the Solitude. Fetch down the 3. I mean, he has a decent enough grave that, like... Alright, Ewit. Buys back the Expressive Iteration. Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like you leave all the creatures in the graveyard in case James does cast another Living End. Because that's a Fury and a Solitude coming back, and that deals with just about everything that James can bring back at the moment. It's enough to keep him alive. That's the Spell Queller. Alright, here comes the Expressive Iteration. Red at 6, Omnath, and Unholy Heat? Is that the other card? That looks like Unholy Heat. Yeah, it's Unholy Heat. I'm assuming it's Exile Ren, put Omnath in hand, bottom deck Unholy Heat. That feels like it should be. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Exiling Unholy Heat. Guess it's just a precautionary thing. In case James decides to Living End. Well, we're a little bit past it, but thank you, regular sir, for following the stream. I appreciate you greatly, and as well as the rest of us. I do need to update that graphic, though. It is no longer spooky season. Unholy Heat stays in the exile zone for now.
Go to mine. It's gone. Fine. You can do it.
Draws return, draws a Cascader. Alright, just passes the turn. Ooh, it's an Ephemerate. Nice. Makes sense to have in the blink deck. Place 3 copies of it. Does Chaz fight this Force Negation? He still has a Dispute in hand. Cast Spell Queller. Nifty. Plays Omnath. The Ewit bought back the Ephemerate. Draw, put a land to play, gain 4 life. Tax in with the Spell Queller. This blink deck has a really... It seems to be really good at surviving, which is cool. If it doesn't die in the first couple turns, it looks like once it gets its feet on the ground, it just looks set. James has 2 Cascaders now. He just picked up a Violent Outburst, I'm pretty sure. Alright, Shardless. I attempt to cast a Living End. There's the Ephemerate. To go on the Spell Queller. To try and take the Living End.
I could exile him.
Guy's gonna fetch down to 6. But I think this is his first land for turn. Yeah, so he'll get a 10. Fetch land, gain 3 life sounds pretty good. Alright, Violent Outburst coming down. Will we find the other... Yep, there's the last living... Not the last living end, but the other living end. Mystical Dispute on that. And James is going to scoop it up. Alright, Chaz is going to move on to top 4, taking it 2-1 against Living End with Yorion Blink. Thank you for watching. See you next time.